My name is Isabelle Foster. I'm with the World Wildlife Fund on our impact investing team, WWF Impact, and this sits within our broader nature finance team, Nature Finance and Investment Strategy, NFI. And essentially, we're working on accelerating sustainable finance for biodiversity and conservation globally. And so to do that, we've got a couple different pillars where we're working. One of our strategies is early stage catalytic investing, as I mentioned, direct equity investments into early stage companies. We also have a strategy on debt, so thinking about debt for nature swaps, sustainability linked bonds, engaging with corporates as well on sustainable debt. Then we also have a strategy on nature markets, and so that's really looking at how do we support nature-based solutions, high integrity carbon market projects, and thinking about how do we help shape that growing market segment. And then we also have a strategy really thinking about public finance. So how do we support governments on some of the public tools they can use, both fiscally and through tax revenues, things of that nature, to support biodiversity. So we've got a couple different areas where we're working. It's a really exciting time, and I would say, particularly in our early stage catalytic work, we have a strong focus on Latin America. So one of the fun things about being at WWF is that we have offices and work in over 100 countries. So really trying to ground our nature-based work and our finance work in local ecosystems, local communities, working closely with local partners. And so our early stage catalytic work has a strong focus on Latin America. We are working in 3 portfolio spaces where we're investing into regenerative agriculture, the circular economy, and also aquaculture, which has principally been seaweed. And so within those strategies, really wanted to start with the food system, because the food system and agriculture has such a strong environmental impact. Globally, the food system is responsible for about 80% of global deforestation, 70% of fresh water use, and about 30% of greenhouse gases. So really a strong environmental component to focusing on the food systems, and at the same time touches daily life. There's a lot of smaller producers, people need food, so it's a really critical nexus point on both the environmental and social side. So on this early stage catalytic piece, I would say one area that we're looking at, particularly in the food system, is how do you bring that patient early stage capital, particularly because agricultural cycles are long. Nature does not go in the timeframes that traditional VC looks for, and so our kind of catalytic model is we're actually bringing in recoverable grants to WWF, deploying that as equity, and then creating an evergreen fund model. And so I would say in having that philanthropic backing, we're able to bring really patient capital, risk-tolerant capital to some of these nature-based investments, thinking on the food system. So I say we need more of that capital base where you can kind of blend some of this philanthropic capital, use that to mobilize and really kickstart these types of evergreen fund models, and just have that patient capital that aligns better with biodiversity business models, agriculture, things that just inherently take longer and are not going to be the quick cycles of software that a lot of traditional VC funds have looked at. Then on the flip side, I would say on some of our kind of more government-facing work and thinking about debt, there's also a piece there on how do we bring in more public funding, particularly working with big actors like Jeff, Global Environmental Facility, and just those blended finance models that can help with some of these debt restructuring pieces as well. So it really takes a whole consortium of capital to address this. But I think it's exciting, particularly at events like FLII, where you're bringing together a variety of different partners, actors across the ecosystem to work together and address some of those capital gaps. Since the pandemic, there's been an increased focus on Latin America and the Caribbean and the incredible solutions that exist here and that are growing, and the entrepreneurs from the region that are really driving change. I would say you're starting to see more of a focus on climate, which is really exciting. I think there's nodes around water that are increasingly becoming prevalent and really salient to a lot of investors and actors. So I would say those nodes of like water, forests, and like agroforestry models are increasingly recognized. Mangroves is, I think, another space. And so how do you both protect the nature, the rich biodiversity that's in Latin America, but also trying to valorize that in ways that are not just economic and telling that story. So I think that's something else that I've started to see is how do we not just recognize the value of nature, but tell that story to other actors who might not be yet playing in this like impact finance space. Yeah, I think with WWF, we're at this exciting point where we've launched this new nature finance and investment strategy, really trying to build out and deepen our partnerships, both the existing work that we've been doing programmatically, but also how do we scale that in some of the new finance work that we're leading. So I think we're really excited to work with a host of different partners on the funding side to think about scaling nature finance through kind of that public sector angle, private sector, working with communities. So I think increasingly we're going to see more of that and some exciting projects in the pipeline in Latin America. So.